Thank you all for joining us. I'm here to give another update on the wildfires spreading across our state. I'm joined on the phone by Oregon Department of Forestry Fire Chief Doug Graff, General Mike Stencil, and Oregon Office of Emergency Management Director Andrew Phelps. I'm joined in person by Gabriella Goldfarb of the Oregon Health Authority. Here's the latest as we find ourselves 72 hours into this crisis. We are now approaching over 900,000 acres burned across the state. To put that number into perspective, in the last 10 years, we see an average of 500,000 acres burn in an entire year. We've seen that nearly double in the past 3 days. We have never seen this amount of uncontained fire across our state. We know that there are fire-related fatalities, and as soon as we are able to provide confirmed information, we will do so. Approximately 30,000 to 40,000 Oregonians have evacuated so far, and evacuations are ongoing. Please stay vigilant and listen to your local officials and firefighters. Please visit wildfire.oregon.gov or your local emergency management agency's website for the latest updates in your particular community. If you are advised to evacuate, please do so immediately. You may not get a second chance. We now have 10 incident management teams managing fires across Oregon. Firefighters continue to work around the clock, putting their lives on the line to save others. They're joined by National Guard members, Army Corps of Engineers, and Red Cross volunteers conducting life-saving evacuations, completing structural assessments, and providing food and shelter to those in need. Their efforts are nothing short of heroic. Today marks what we hope is the final day of the wind event that put us in this urgent fire situation. But unfortunately, the weather system is not yet giving us a reprieve. My teams are telling me that while wind dynamics are changing, we are now facing unstable air conditions that continue to make response efforts very, very difficult. These weather dynamics are creating unpredictable movement of the fires across the landscape. While our state reels from this horrific firestorm of dry weather, hot wind, and drought conditions, this will not be a one-time event. Unfortunately, it is the bellwether of the future. We are feeling the acute impacts of climate change. We are seeing its devastating impacts in Oregon, on the West Coast, and frankly, throughout the entire world. Today, you'll be hearing from Fire Chief Doug Graff with a fuller report, but in the next day, we hope to be able to transition from our focus on evacuations and saving lives to a focus on firefighting and containing the fires directly. I want you to know that we are doing everything we can to fight these fires. We have tapped our Oregon National Guard members and are looking for additional capacity from surrounding states. General Stencil will give a more detailed report on how National Guard are being deployed. 30 trained crews from the Department of Corrections are currently out in the field working with our firefighting teams. We've put out a national emergency request for additional help, and as of last night, had secured strike teams that will be coming in from Utah. We put a request into the U.S. Department of Defense for a battalion of active duty military who are trained in firefighting. In addition, a number of our firefighters are scheduled to return to classes at their universities and colleges. I've asked both our universities and our community colleges to work with students who are trained as firefighters so that they can continue to fight fires and not be penalized for missing school. Oregon's universities and community colleges, their faculty and staff are valuable partners in this effort, and I thank them for their flexibility. Yesterday afternoon, I began the process to set up the governor's disaster cabinet, which will streamline state agency coordination and distribution of resources as we deal with the vast impacts of this disaster, from social services to health impacts to agriculture. This is extremely difficult for many, many Oregonians. Thousands of people loaded their cars with precious belongings, pets, and as much as they could possibly carry. They are sleeping away from their homes, in motels, on cots in shelters, or with family and friends. Folks are really scared and looking for information. Know that we are doing everything we can in our power to support you. We are with you. We will continue to help people stay safe and deal with the aftermath. We will get through this. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our Fire Chief, Doug Graff. Doug.
Thank you, Governor Brown. Doug Graff, Chief of Fire Protection. I will be joined also by Mariana Temple from the Oregon State Fire Marshal. So we'll go back and forth relative to offering a briefing on current status. We will start where we're seeing the greatest fire activity today, and that is in the Riverside fire. This fire made a strong push to the northwest, down Highway 211 yesterday. Held just before Estacada, but now we're seeing spots over Estacada and continues to push towards those communities. Mariana, is there anything you'd like to add on the Riverside fire?
Yes, in addition to what Doug has indicated, we're also planning for the potential of the Beachy fire to the south and the Riverside to the north merging, which could cause explosive fire behavior. And based on the, and it's a possibility, but we're preparing for what that would mean and ensuring that we have our responders where we need them to be and in a safe place. So throughout the day, we will be monitoring the situation, and we ask all Oregonians to continue to monitor evacuation levels.
Mariana, I know this is Clackamas County. Does it include Marion County as well?
Currently, there's no recommendation to reduce that in Clackamas or change the evacuation levels in Marion, but we will have responders in Silverton area monitoring the situation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mariana. So between Estacada and Staten, several miles across, we have Silverton, Molalla, all those communities. There's a fire front continues to push to the west, downslope, as it's been consistent for the past 72 hours. And as the governor mentioned, we really need a shift in the weather and wind conditions more favorable for us to turn on the offensive on these fires. Currently, we have to remain on that fire front in a position of life safety and point protection on structures and communities as we can. Hopefully, as the governor mentioned, this is the last day of that weather push, those down canyon winds, and that is the greatest threat we're seeing today. Much of the east wind conditions across the state have lessened, moving south to north. It's in this Columbia River Gorge, North Oregon, where we're still seeing some of those east winds moving, and this should subside later into the evening. And we're hoping this will be the first evening we do not see aggressive push from these fire fronts downslope canyons. Moving to Lion's Head, which is just east of the Santiam Beachy fires, within the Santiam Canyon. We are making progress on that fire, establishing anchor lines where we can, the south side of that fire, and continuing to push to establish containment lines. I'll continue to speak of the fires on the landscape in a different tone because we are beginning to able to establish anchor points with dozer lines and hand crews and starting to turn the corner on some of these fires to move from a posture of only life safety and point protection to suppression efforts. And that's how I'll describe the rest of the fires across the state. As we move south into the McKenzie highway drainage, we have the Holiday Farm fire. Sits at about 144,000 acres right now. We have a significant number of landowner, forestry resources, dozers, heavy equipment poised to move on that fire, and many of them have places that we have been able to anchor and start pushing containment lines on that fire. We have not been able to fly aviation resources in a significant way today, and that's because of the smoke impacts and visibility impacts does not allow us to fly aircraft in a significant way. We have moved the National Guard helicopters to the north out of Hillsborough to some fires where we may have some clear space, and when I wrap around the state, I'll get back to those fires. So we have not flown on the Holiday Farm fire. Moving south to the Archie's fire, in the Umpqua drainage, that fire sits at 107,000 acres. Not quite as successful relative to moving on suppression efforts on this fire. Still pushing us a bit, but we are moving the right resources in there. So as the weather turns, we can work. I expect some good work on both of the two fires I just mentioned, the Holiday Farm and the Archie's fires, this evening, because we will continue to have night shifts where we traditionally can do good work on containment, heavy equipment, and crews. So I expect us to be able to do some of that this evening. Also, some good progress, 242 fire, north Klamath. We've had established containment lines get pushed for the last couple of days, and we have lost some containment lines there, and then reestablish them in the evenings of the next day. Again, landowner resources, heavy equipment involved to support that effort. Continuing to the west in the Ashland and Medford area, we have the Alameda fire and the Oberchin fire. On the Alameda fire, Oregon State Fire Marshal team has done an outstanding job to hold forward progress on that fire as of mid-morning, and I expect, given the conditions there, haven't had a brief for a few hours yet. I hope they've been able to hold that, and I'll turn to Marty in a second to talk to these two. The Oberchin fire, 20,000 acres, same condition. We have an interagency team on that one, and I think we've been making some progress relative to some containment lines. Not huge numbers, folks. This is the first step towards containment that we've been able to make in 72 hours. So we might be pushing 5% containment, which means 5% of the open fire lines, we've got containment lines with hand crews or dozers. All the fires I mentioned, of all the fires I just mentioned down south, we've had a little bit of clean, clear, visible air this morning, so we did get some flights up, and when we can get aircraft in the air, they prove to be very helpful to hold lines for us to get hand crews and dozers in there to establish containment lines. So the Oberchin fire, we were able to fly just a bit. Continuing around the map, moving to the northwest on the coast, really good success on Echo Mountain, which is outside of Tillamook, outside Lincoln City, where we had evacuations in that community. Lines held. Great work through the night. A lot of heavy equipment from forest landowners, again, holding those lines through the night, and they've held through to today. So no further impact relative to structural loss experienced on that fire. through the day thus far, unable to fly there. And I do apologize, Mariana, I missed you. Did you have anything to add to this point before I close with the fires for Southwest Portland? Mariana?
Yeah, the only thing I would add in Southwest Oregon, they're experiencing another fire, this later fire, which is another conflagration. And in that area, we are sending resources. We're coordinating with an incident management team from California, and we're continuing to monitor that situation. On the Alameda fire, the last reports were that there was some good work there done, to Doug's point, and the possibility of decreasing evacuations if they have not done so already. Report.
Thank you, Mariana. That's really important. The California fire that moved into our southwest border a couple days ago, the Slater fire, is actually the #1 fire in the nation. Northern California is the #1 region relative to able to deploy resources in terms of prioritization of limited resources. So that fire is of significance and pushed significantly into Oregon. Back to where I was in Lincoln City, strong support there in Eco Mountain Fire. Moving north to the Pike Fire, where we had the community of Bay City evacuated. Those lines held once again. Great work through the night, again through the day. So very proud of the work done. Again, local contractors, forest operating resources integrated with the local resources holding those lines. So this is the first day that I have been able to speak on some successes on these large fires. I'm really proud of the work that we've been able to do in this transition of waning on the strength of those east winds. I'll close here, Mariana, and could use some help, but I'll set the stage. Because of the smoke, we are always looking for where we have visibility on anywhere in the state to fly aviation resources and mobilize where we can. So midday, predictive services, we thought we might have a window of clear air in and around the Portland area. So we moved 2 of the National Guard Black Hawk helicopters up into Hillsborough to be able to be closer to the Riverside fire on the east side by Estacada, and then 2 fires, one north of Newburgh and one out of Hag Lake. Mariana, any comments on those 2 fires west of Portland?
So the 2 fires west of Portland, we were in conflagration on Hag Lake, but due to the conditions on Riverside, we did move resources off that fire. Not entirely, but conflagration surge resources to Riverside, and we continue to monitor through our local fire defense board system on those 2 fires. So any new resources to that area would be welcomed.
Excellent. Governor Brown, that is end of report on the fire stat.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Mariana. With that, I'll turn it over to General Stencil, please.
Thank you, Governor. So the Oregon National Guard continues the supporting fire response in the state through, via 3 task force, traffic control points or TCPs, aviation, and some ground firefighting teams, and I'll walk briefly through each of those. So with regard to the TCPs, excuse me, today in Jackson County, we're standing up 6 TCPs down there. They're going to be manned by 27 soldiers and airmen. Tomorrow, we will be standing up 6 more TCPs in Lane County and 8 in Marion County with another 60 soldiers. In conversation with county commissioners yesterday, we think the need is going to grow for more TCPs. So in anticipation of more requests, we have another 200 guardsmen that have volunteered, and we're undergoing screening so that they can be placed at the request of Oregon State Police. With regard to aviation, we've added another 2 platforms for a total of 9 aircraft. We've got 1 additional 860 Black Hawk that's being stood up in Salem to provide medevac support to the west side of the state. And we also have 1 additional Lakota that's being stood up in Salem to support air operations once the ceiling and visibility support broader bucket operations, as Mr. Graff explained earlier. With regard to the ground firefighting teams, our 3 125-person pre-trained firefighting teams that were formally requested by ODF and are being mobilized as I speak. They're going to be arriving at fire camp on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. The current plan is for them to support the holiday farm fire, but that's obviously subject to the needs and direction of ODF under this dynamic situation that we're looking at. So with regard to expanding DoD capabilities for ODF, we're looking at 3 different fronts. At the request of Governor Brown, we're looking to train 2 more additional 125-person teams that will be ready to support ODF in about 2 weeks. We're also supporting ODF in their request for active duty Army firefighting support to fight fires on some of the federal lands. And then third, we're also working with the National Guard Bureau and states outside of our region to resource additional firefighting teams under a mutual assistance compact. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, General Stenzel. We really appreciate the service of our National Guardsmen and women. Director Phelps.
Thank you, Governor. Thanks, everyone, for being here today. I want to acknowledge all of the work of our firefighters, our first responders, our volunteers, and our 911 operators who are working as diligently as they can to keep communities and Oregonians safe. While we have a number of resources on the front line of these fires, here at the state's Emergency Coordination Center, life safety remains our #1 priority. We are working to save lives. Those evacuees who've made it to safety, we're so glad you're safe. We need you to stay safe. We're asking folks not to return to evacuated areas. Those areas are still very dangerous. We'll be working with sheriff's offices to coordinate re-entry. Those who haven't been impacted but are interested in looking at damage, don't do it. It's disrespectful to those who've lost everything, and it's disrespectful and dangerous for you and for the firefighters. It's not worth it. If you're at home, stay home. If you're safe, stay safe. Stay informed, stay ready to go. We've got rapidly expanding evacuation orders on a number of these fires. Please stay in tune with local media and local official government sources through traditional media, websites, and through social media. We also ask, if you're home and you're safe, try to check on your neighbors, see if they need anything. Talk about evacuation plans. Do folks have vehicles or transportation out of the area if they need it? Help your neighbors. That's what Oregonians are all about in good times, and it's certainly what we're about during bad days like what we're experiencing now. If you have to evacuate, know where you're going to go and know what you need to bring with you. Regardless of your evacuation level, now is the time to plan. If you're at a level 3 evacuation, you just have to go. If you're at level 1 or level 2, have things loaded in your vehicles, medications, additional food, water. We're working closely with the Red Cross to ensure every Oregonian who has to evacuate has a safe place to stay the night. I also want to comment briefly on those who have evacuated. We're leveraging the Red Cross's Safe and Well registry. We're encouraging folks who've evacuated to register on that site to report themselves as safe and well. This will allow your friends and family to check on you that way, because we know a lot of folks, quite frankly, left without time to grab a cell phone or other technology to communicate. Leverage that system. We're also working on a statewide registry to report unaccounted for family members, people who may be missing during these wildfires. A couple of specific fires have set up fire-specific registries, and we're working to combine those to have that statewide picture. I'll close by mentioning resources. Resources across the board are spread thin. We heard Chief Graff and Deputy Fire Marshal Mariano Ruiz-Temple speak about the firefighting resource gaps. Well, we've got gaps in mass care, in communications, across the board. Everything that we need to respond, we need more. We're actively engaging with our partner states across the nation through the Emergency Management Assistance Compact. I want to acknowledge Utah for answering the call for help, but we're going to have more calls for resources from states within the West Coast and really, quite frankly, across the country. The governor's also made a request, as I believe she's briefed, for an emergency declaration. This will provide additional federal resources to support our operations. I do want to confirm that as of last night, FEMA has sent an incident management assistance team to be co-located here at the State Emergency Coordination Center to be that direct coordination with federal resources. And I need to thank the governor for her leadership on that. I also want to thank the Red Cross. They've made arrangements to surge additional national level resources to support mass care operations across the state. Folks, just to reiterate, stay out of evacuated areas. If you're home and you're safe, stay safe. Call 911 only in emergencies and leverage resources like 211, the Red Cross websites, and other resource websites for fire information. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Phelps. And before we go to questions, I just wanted to provide another update. I am being told that the evacuation zone in Clackamas County has expanded and now includes the city of Molalla. Please check with the Clackamas County Sheriff's website at www.clackamas.us/wildfires for full updated details. And with that, Nikki, I think we're ready for questions.
Just as a reminder for speakers using the conference line, please say your name to help assist with ASL interpreters. And then a reminder for the press, please press 0 for questions. And if you're having trouble accessing the line, please email us your questions. With that, we'll begin with Cale Williams.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. This question is for Fire Chief Graff. I was hoping you could go into a little more detail about what type of fire behavior could be expected if the Riverside and Beachy fires were to combine.
Yes. Thank you for the question. Doug Graff here, Chief of Fire Protection, Oregon Department of Forestry. I might rephrase that. I fully expect those two fires to combine. Given the place that they're sitting, given the full day and evening, I think where those east winds will continue to be present in that region, those fires are going to connect from my perspective at this point. The fire behavior we are experiencing now is what we'll continue to see until those winds subside, those downslope winds subside. I think this fire will continue to push towards Molalla, so that evacuations there was absolutely critical. We really need these winds to stop in order for the forward spread of those fires to stop.
Great, thanks for the question. Next we have Hank. Hank with Willamette Week, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Hello?
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking my call. What are the odds that we see partial evacuation in Portland and in the metro area?
Doug or Mariana, do either one of you want to take that one?
Yeah, Doug Graff here. Mariana, I can give a little perspective on a push here with the fire behavior, and I think that'll drive where we go with evacuations. Currently, with that fire front, both on the Riverside fire and the San Am Beachy moving to the west, it's all going to be about these winds. I wish I could say exactly when those winds subside. If they do within the next half hour, we're going to hold the lines, and this should push into Molalla. If those winds sustain through the night, this could push another mile or two west towards 211. So it's hard to predict how far those will go in. The key element in that fire behavior and the risk is trigger points. When we know the fire gets to this point, given those consistent winds, we pull trigger points to cause evacuations ahead of the fire. So those are crucial, and there's great alignment with the State Fire Marshal, local fire resources, and the Sheriff's Office. And I'll turn to Mariana to speak more on the evacuation process.
Yes, thank you, Doug. Currently, that is the conversation that is occurring now, is where those trigger points are and when we would push them based on the fire activity that we may see today. All based on, to Doug's point, wind, how far it does push in that wind, and how far or how active the fire is when those two fires converge. So we had a brief meeting with both county sheriff's offices and both fire defense board chiefs on this very topic. We talked about fire behavior, potential, safety, and we've put a good plan together to ensure that not only our responders are prepared for this event and the community as well.
Great, thank you for the question, Hank. Next, we have Claire. Claire with Statesman Journal, are you there?
Yes, hi, thank you. I wonder if someone might be able to, at this point, even just give a rough sense of the damage caused by these fires, even if it's just an estimate. Thank you.
Claire, this is Governor Brown. As I mentioned yesterday, this is unprecedented weather conditions have created a historic fire situation in Oregon. I expect that it will take several days, weeks for us to fully estimate the damage. But we are asking everyone right now to be focused, our firefighters, our National Guard, our Army Corps, our Red Cross, to be focused on saving lives.
Thanks, Claire. Next, we have Gary Warner from Eastern Oregon.
Yeah, hi, it's Gary Warner from EO Media Group. A little bit sort of following up on Claire, we've had a report from, or confirmation from the Marion Sheriff's Office that 2 people died up there. There's been one person who evidently died down in the Medford area. Are you getting any sort of sense of the scope of possible fatalities and casualties? Are we talking handfuls, dozens? Things are a little bit upbeat more today, like we're fighting back on this thing. Are we going to have some revelations in the next couple of days that could be pretty tough?
Gary, this is Governor Brown. Again, I know that Oregonians are eager to get all of the information as quickly as possible. Right now, our firefighters are focused on saving lives, and we want them to stay focused on that incredibly important work. As we get more information regarding fatalities and structural damage, we'll certainly provide that information to the public as quickly as possible. I have to warn you, it's going to take time, and we have to do this thoughtfully and methodically. But our focus, our top priority right now is saving lives.
Okay, along the same line, do you have some idea of what has caused some of these fires? There was an investigation on the one down in Medford. There was talk about downed power lines. Do you have any more of a shape of what's causing the fires?
Mariana, would you like to speak to that, please?
Yeah, there are a few fires that are still currently under investigation. A few fires that have been out on the landscape for a couple weeks and was impacted as these fires grew due to the east winds. And then, there is speculation and conversation around the potential for additional acreage due to downed power lines due to that significant wind event. So I think where we're really at is after a fire, after we're able to do containment, is really working on those investigations to really determine what the outcomes are.
And Gary, I'll just add, in the weeks and months to come, there's going to be ample opportunity for investigation. As I mentioned earlier, right now, our teams are focused on saving lives.
Thanks, Gary. And for folks on the phone, if they have questions, please press 0 to enter the queue. If you're having trouble accessing the line, please email us your questions. We have 2 more folks in the queue. Next up is Keaton Thomas with K2. Keaton, are you there?
I am here, thank you. This question is for Governor Brown, and that is, given the current financial state that the state of Oregon is in, is state able to afford to continue fighting these fires? How long can it keep it up? And does this change an outlook on how we can pay for firefighting efforts moving forward?
I'll answer your last question first. As you know, I had convened a fire council over the last interim to really take a look at the methods that we have been using to fight fire and what we could do to prevent them. The council came forward with an extensive report. There was legislation drafted as a result of that report, obviously to both prevent and do the harvest and thinning that it would take. It will cost a lot of money to ensure that we have healthy landscapes. I am committed to moving that legislation forward, and it is my hope and expectation that there will be bipartisan support for this effort in the 21 legislative session. In terms of the financial needs of the Department of Forestry, I am confident that they will have the financial resources they need to do the critically important work at hand, which as a priority includes saving lives, saving structures, and hopefully in the next couple of days can focus as well on proactive firefighting.
Great, thank you for that, Liz. Sorry, next question we have Liz Seitz. Liz, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Governor, you said you requested additional help at the national level. What specifically did you request? Did you request a certain number of firefighters, aircraft? And then I have a question for Doug about what would you expect would be the earliest anyone could return to any of the evacuated areas? I assume we're talking about weeks. Thank you.
So, Les, I think the requests have been a multiple level. We obviously asked for an emergency declaration that came yesterday. We're still waiting for White House response. We have asked for Department of Defense, an active battalion that is trained in firefighting. And we are certainly asking other states for National Guard assistance. I'll let General Stencil fill in the details, but I'm also in regular contact with our federal delegation, and Oregon is not the only state facing these weather challenges. Obviously, Louisiana was faced with a hurricane a few weeks ago, and Iowa, for example, had the derecho, the horrific winds. There are a number of states that need assistance. I encourage them to work across the aisle to provide assistance to states like Oregon that are facing these catastrophic emergencies. Major Stencil, General, sure.
Governor, if I may, I guess I'll make the question more simple. How many more firefighters does Oregon need to battle these wildfires?
I will turn that over to Doug Graff, and General Stencil can answer more details regarding the Guard. Doug? Chief Graff.
Okay, Doug Graff here, the Chief of Fire Protection. Relative to how many more firefighters, we have 10 incident management teams now on Oregon's landscape managing these complex of fires. Generally speaking, we're in the 200 to 300 firefighters on each of these fires currently, plus several hundred running initial attack fires, new fires across the landscape. So we've been hovering in the range of 3,000 plus firefighters fully operational on the landscape. I think we need to come close to doubling the effort over the next couple weeks to get our arms around these fires. I think end of season events, which is the fall rains, typically come in October, mid-October. So we would hope for an early start to that event, but wanted to offer you some perspective relative to what we have in front of us and how much more capacity we think we need over that time.
Thanks for that question, Les. Now we have a written question from the Christian Science Monitor. Francine Kiefer asks, what percentage of firefighter force are students?
Could folks on the phone hear the question? Could you say it again, please, Nikki?
Yep. Francine Kiefer from the Christian Science Monitor asks, what percentage of the firefighter force are students?
Chief Graff, can you answer that?
I can. In 1987, that was the last time where we had a widespread firestorm of this significance, where we looked into an excused absence for students going to college who are currently participating in wildland firefighting. So we pulled, we asked that question again this year because I'm looking at, when I spoke with the contractors who provide just over 200 crews to this region, 20-person fire crews, they said in the range of 30+% of that fire crew goes to college here in the next week or two. So we were looking at Bill Challenge to sustain those contract crews who are professional firefighters, many who've been fighting fires for many years, and we put on the front lines. So that was the impetus for asking that question.
Great, thank you, Doug. And our last question that we have is Pat Doris. Pat, are you there?
Yes, I am. This is a question about the evacuations and the reverse 911 system. We've heard occasionally people saying that they never were notified to get out and that it was neighbors or friends who helped them. So I'm just wondering, how has the reverse 911 system been working, and if it's not working in some areas, how come? Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. Mariana, do you want to speak to that? Andrew as well, possibly?
Hi, Governor. This is Andrew. I can go ahead and take that one.
Great.
So there's a number of ways, Pat, we try to notify folks of evacuation orders. What's commonly referred to as reverse 911 or generically a mass notification system. Oftentimes those are opt-in systems. We're encouraging every Oregonian to opt into those systems. Often you'll have to go to a website and put in your cell phone number, your home phone number, and sometimes even your home address so you can get the appropriate notifications. We've also been utilizing what's called IPAWS, the Integrated Public Alert and Warning System. This is the same system that can send out automatic alerts like Amber Alerts when there's missing children in our area. Those alerts typically have about a 70% contact rate just based on the technology. It's also important to note some folks can disable that alert from their phone. If you have a cell phone and you're not getting alerts, check to make sure that your settings are set up to allow for emergency alerts. It's life-saving technology, and we need to make sure that folks are able to access every possible mechanism we have to provide alerts. These alerts are being disseminated at the county level. They have the visibility and granularity on what needs to be evacuated and where to tell folks to go. We'll certainly work with all of our counties to evaluate the efficacy of those systems and programs, but we really need folks to opt into those systems and to make sure you've got alerts enabled on your phone so you can get those IPAWS automatic wireless emergency alerts to your phone. And listen to the radio, the old-fashioned radio. Those IPAWS alerts also go through the EAS, the Emergency Alert System, and that's a great way that our media partners, you all, are helping us spread these messages. A lot of ways to get information, folks. Stay alert, stay connected.
Thank you. In closing, I want to say thank you again to our firefighters, our law enforcement, our National Guard, our first responders, and Red Cross. I am incredibly grateful for your time and energy and everything you are doing to save lives. And to those of you who've lost your homes, please know that we are with you. I know the situation is bleak right now, but we will get through this. Thanks, everybody. Be safe out there.